Welcome back to Watches and Politics. I'm your host, Eddie Schipoli, and in this episode, we step firmly into the 21st century. We've traveled through centuries of horological history, from Reformation Geneva to Cold War summits. But today we explore the present. This isn't just about new materials or modern designs. It's about globalization, how trade, technology, ethics, and geopolitics shape the ticking heartbeat of the watch industry. From independents like George Daniels and Philippe Dufour, to the disruptive rise of smartwatches, to the quiet but powerful force of tariffs and sanctions. This is the modern story of watches in a world in motion. Because even now, when everyone carries the hour in their pocket, a watch still does more than tell time. It tells where we stand in history. The 21st century put the wristwatch at a fascinating crossroads. On one hand, smartphones and smartwatches that tell time and track health and connect us globally. And on the other, the traditional mechanical watch, which is more alive than ever. Mechanical watches are no longer about utility. They've become art, status, and personal expression. The rise of independent makers such as George Daniels, Philippe Dufour, F.P. Journe, or Recep Recepi proved that one person, crafting by hand, can influence the entire industry. Even big brands took notice. Archives reopened, heritage-inspired reissues flourished. Complications, once reserved for connoisseurs, are now headliners. And all the while, smartwatches also grew, but instead of killing mechanicals, they highlighted their timelessness. In a hyper-digital world, people sought anchors of tradition. Globalization tore down barriers. Swiss watchmakers, once confined to Europe and America, now had the world as their market. Trade alliances like the EU and NAFTA, the fall of the Soviet Union, and Switzerland's neutrality gave brands global reach. Emerging markets transformed everything. The Middle East and Asia weren't just customers anymore, they became cultural forces shaping watch design and branding. Rolex launched day-date models with Arabic numerals, for example. Omega released China-only editions. Deloitte now calls India the next frontier of luxury horology. And the result? The result is that the luxury mindset has shifted. No longer Eurocentric, brands had to tailor campaigns, embrace digital marketing, and leverage influencers for a global audience. Watchmaking was no longer just a Swiss story. It became a global language. Talking about the global language, just let's look at regional powerhouses today. The Gulf became a center of power, wealth, and legacy. From the 1970s onward, Swiss brands such as Rolex and Audemars Piguet, among others, produced bespoke pieces for sultans and royals. Crest emblazoned dials became status symbols of heritage and authority. Today, Dubai Watch Week stands as a diplomatic stage as much as a luxury fair. China's economic boom fueled a luxury frenzy. Flagships in Beijing and Shanghai thrived. Watches became prestige gifts among officials. But in 2010s onward, anti-corruption campaigns turned that culture upside down. Gifting faded and brands pivoted. Now it was about personal enjoyment rather than political networking. Still, Hong Kong, Singapore, Bangkok, they rose as hubs, proving Asia's role in luxury distribution remains central. In Mexico, Chile, and Brazil, economic growth spurred demand. Messaging stressed heritage, tradition, and exclusivity. The real future, however, points to India. With a booming middle class and growing influence, India is poised to be the next giant in the global watch market. Let's look at Russia, who once looked like a stable luxury market, but geopolitics changed that. Sanctions after Crimea in 2014 and again after Ukraine in 2022 froze that market. Swiss brands shifted to safer regions while great markets expanded and loved those sanctions. Even in watchmaking, geopolitics draws sharp lines. And in today's world, success in watchmaking isn't just about keeping precise time or as much precise as possible. It's about reading the rhythms of global change. From Middle Eastern wealth to Chinese regulations to India's rise, brands have proven remarkably adaptable. At the heart of it all, the watch remains a powerful symbol. A power symbol of craftsmanship, legacy, and national pride. That's why events like the Dubai Watch Week aren't only about unveiling new models. There are moments of diplomacy in motion where exclusive editions and royal commissions reinforce alliances and cultural ties. When we think of luxury watches, we usually picture elegance, precision, and tradition. But behind every beautiful crafted timepiece is a complex web of trade policies, tariffs, and international agreements that shape how these watches were made, where they are sold, and what they cost to produce and what they are sold for. Switzerland's bilateral agreements ease exports, of course. Tariffs, however, can shift strategies overnight. During US-China tensions, watch parts faced higher tariffs, for example, forcing brands to diversify sourcing. Rapidly growing markets in Asia, the Middle East, and South America aren't just important because of rising demand. Trade agreements in these regions cut through bureaucracy, giving countries with free trade deals to Switzerland smoother access to luxury goods. The World Trade Organization notes that such agreements are central to global commerce, and watches are no exception in this sense. But trade policy is also a double-edged sword. Tariffs can quickly shift the map of sales and the map of production. And politics doesn't just shape sales, it shapes the supply chain itself. Platinum from South Africa, gold from Russia, or other rare materials often come from politically sensitive regions. Sanctions, instability, or war can disrupt access overnight, throwing production schedules into chaos. Even under strict rules of the Swiss-made label, many brands rely on assembly or parts from abroad, particularly in China, to keep costs manageable. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed just how fragile these networks were. As global supply chains fractured, brands scrambled to redesign decades-old logistics, shifting toward regional or local suppliers to protect against future shocks. In the process, the very way watches are made and moved around the globe has been reshaped. In today's luxury landscape, beauty isn't enough. Watches must also be ethical. Conflict minerals, labor rights, environmental impact, consumers today demand accountability. In response, many brands pursued certifications like the Responsible Jewelry Council, which ensures materials like gold are sourced responsibly and pass through ethical supply chains. It became a way to also prove accountability on paper and in practice. However, brands also responded by making values and ethics a selling point for themselves. Chopard committed to 100% ethical gold. Omega aligned with the UN's sustainability goals. Panerai launched recycled steel lines that they called Ecolution. IWC shifted to renewable energy and publishing sustainability reports for radical transparency. Audemars Piguet invested in conservation and upgraded its production processes. Once again, Swiss watch brands adopted. But scrutiny is high. Some accusations of greenwashing persist. Governments also stepped in. EU sourcing rules, US's Dodd-Frank conflict mineral disclosure, Paris Climate Accord commitments, and also some countries offering tax incentives for green manufacturing are pushing brands toward more sustainable practices. For the next generation, sustainability is a selling point. So what can we expect as a new trend from major watch brands? Well, we can expect more recycled metals and materials, lab-grown diamonds, and circular economy strategies, which more likely will increase the market for vintage watches and luxury goods. In this age, a watch isn't just measured in seconds. It's measured in values. Then came the smartwatch. Apple, Samsung, Garmin. Suddenly, the wrist was a connected hub. The watch industry today stands at a powerful crossroads, where old world craftsmanship meets the algorithms of the digital age. Smartwatches have become cultural fixtures. These devices now monitor heart rates, take calls, count steps, and deliver notifications. For a generation raised on real-time updates, that kind of connectivity has become second nature, or the second skin, if you wish. Swiss brands scoffed at first, but then adopted. Tag Heuer's connected Mont Blanc Summit, Hublot's Wear OS partnerships, heritage is meeting the digital. Even blockchain entered the mix, but not for timekeeping, of course, but for authentication and for fighting counterfeits. Bulgari adopted, so did Breitling, and I'm sure many other brands will follow. But smartwatches raise new issues: data privacy, GDPR compliance, surveillance risks. The wrist became a political space once again. Mechanical brands responded to by reframing. Instead of competing directly with tech, luxury brands leaned into their strengths. They reframed their products not as tools, but as heirlooms. Smartwatches may be obsolete in 3 years, but a Patek Philippe, that endures for generations. But that doesn't tell the whole story, of course, because the luxury brands also double down on heritage while exploring hybrid models as well to cater to a younger generation who want both beauty and biometric tracking. Swiss tradition and Silicon Valley innovation are now uneasy dance partners, although the music is playing. Before we close, let's pause on one big question that I always like to ask. Why is any of this political? After all, we've been talking about watches, trade, sustainability, smartwatches, even influencers. So why does it matter politically? Well, at first glance, the watch world feels like fashion. But dig deeper and every tick syncs with politics. Trade wars reshape markets. Sanctions cut off regions. Sustainability movements dictate sourcing. Smartwatches collect data, health, movement, behavior. Well, that data draws the attention of lawmakers and privacy regulators. Privacy laws shape smartwatch designs in return. Even a leader's choice of a diplomatic gift or their choice of a wristwear sends subtle but powerful messages. That's not just business, it's geopolitics. When India emerges as the next big market, it signals shifting global influence. When Swiss brands host Dubai Watch Week, it's not just about watches, it's diplomacy in motion. Watches, more than ever, are political artifacts. They reflect and respond to power, ethics, diplomacy, and global change. That quiet tick on your wrist is not just counting the seconds, it's counting shifts in the world order. As we close this chapter, one truth becomes clear. Watches never just tell time. They tell stories of power, trade, and ethics. A tourbillon is a statement. A smartwatch is a data battleground. A vintage reissue is a reminder of heritage. In the 21st century, watches measure more than hours. They measure values, and they reveal how power flows. So next time, we'll turn to the past once again, but with modern eyes. Episode 7 explores the resurgence of vintage and neo-vintage watchmaking and how nostalgia, collecting, and tradition are reshaping politics in the age of globalization. Stay tuned and see you there.